Hello teachers, learners, and parents. Sir Jeff po, at your service. Alam nyo ba na meron tayong website na tinatawag na DepEd Commons? Ang DepEd Commons ay binuo upang gawing accessible ang pagtuturo at pag-aaral dito sa ating bansa gamit lamang ang inyong mga smart devices gaya ng cellphones, tablets, at computers. Dito ay maaari nating ma-access ang iba't ibang learning materials mula sa Department of Education. Meron itong mga interactive materials, electronic self-learning modules, at instructional video lessons mula sa DepEd TV na tiyak na makatutulong sa pag-aaral ng mga mag-aaral galing ka man sa public o private school. Walang problema dahil welcome ang lahat dito. Para ito sa mga guro, magulang at mga mag-aaral mula sa kinder hanggang grade 12, alternative learning system o ALS, at pati na rin ang special education. At huwag kang mag-alala dahil kahit walang load ay maaari mong ma-access ang mga learning materials. Tama! Libre ito. Ang kailangan mo lamang gawin ay i-on ang iyong data at buksan lamang ang iyong browser at i-type ang commons.deped.gov.ph. Alam na ba ng iyong mga kasamahang guro o mag-aral ang tungkol sa DepEd Commons? I-share mo na ang video na ito upang matuto rin sila kung paano gagamitin ang DepEd Commons sa mabilis at napakadaling paraan. Muli, ito po si Sir Jeff at kita-kits po tayo sa DepEd Commons. Paalam!
Magandang araw, Sir Wilbur po, at your service. Narito ang ETULay upang gabayan ka sa inyong pag-aaral upang lubos na maunawaan ang iba't ibang paksa o subject. Ang ETULay ay isang free online tutorial class na pinangungunahan ng DepEd Educational Technology Unit sa pamumuno ni Undersecretary Elaine Del B. Pascua. Ang programang ito ay hindi lamang para sa mga bata, kundi ito rin ay magsisilbing gabay sa mga magulang at mga guro kung paano nila ituturo o gagabayan sa bawat asignatura ang kanilang mga anak o mga estudyante. Sa kasalukuyan, ang self-learning module mula sa rehiyon ng Calabarzon at kilala sa tawag na pivot ang ginagamit sa ating ETULay online class. Kaya ano pang hinihintay ninyo? Ihanda na ang inyong mga ballpen o lapis, papel o kwaderno at samahan kaming itulay ang pagkatuto para sa bawat batang Pilipino. Sama-sama tayong magtutulungan para malampasan ang mga hamon sa panahong ito. Halina't matuto kasama ang inyong online tutor sa oras na ito.
Another math venture with Teacher Rev. Today we're going to learn more about mean and variance. Hi everyone, good day. I hope everyone's excited on another math venture with Teacher Rev. Today we're going to learn more about mean and variance of discrete random variable. We've been discussing about random variable for 2 weeks now. From the first week we discussed about the discrete and continuous random variable. On second week we discussed about the probability mass function, and now we're ready to have another adventure. So, let's start with our target or our objective. For today, we're going to illustrate the mean and the variance of discrete random variable. Also, we're going to calculate the mean and the variance of discrete random variable. So, are you ready? Let me start with a question. Do you remember the classic experiment of throwing a die? We'll start with that activity. I have a hypothetical question for you. What if you roll a fair die 6,000 times? Teacher, it's not possible. It's okay. It's a hypothetical question. Since it's a fair die, we expect that each face will have equal chance of occurring. Correct? Do you agree with me? So, kung 6,000 times nating i-roll ang die, basically, we would expect to roll 1,000 ones, 1,000 twos, 1,000 threes, and so on until 1,006. Having about 1,000 occurrences for each possible outcome. Bakit yun mangyayari? Kasi nga, fair die yung meron tayo. So, ibig sabihin, if we're going to roll a die, i-expect natin na pare-pareho yung chance na mag-occur yung bawat phase. Yan. The second question would be, what would be the average value of the outcome obtained if that situation will happen? So if we are going to look at the average, remember when we talk about the mean or the average, when you were in grade 7, what we did is we add everything, then divide it to the number of items we added. Can you still recall? It's the same thing with random variable. But how are we going to do that, teacher? Okay, this is how we can actually compute for the mean or the expected value of a random variable. We can multiply the occurrence with the value that we acquired. So, we will multiply 1,000 with 1, 1,000 with 2, 1,000 with 3, and so on, multiplying 1,000 with 6. After getting all the products, since it's mean or average, we add everything, and then we divide it with the number of occurrence. So, if that's the case, we have 1,000 plus 2,000 plus 3,000 plus 4,000 and so on plus 6,000. And then, the sum of all of that, we're going to divide it with 6,000. That will give us the expected value. So, that means we have 21,000 over 6,000. There you go, which will be equal to 7 over 2, which when we simplify is 3.5. Okay? So, we have that value. But if you're going to look at it, paano naging 3.5? Eh, wala naman tayong value na mag-a-appear na 3.5. If you're going to consider this thing, wala naman nga tayong outcome na 3.5, but remember, we're not actually identifying the outcome. We're getting the average of all the occurrence based on the experiment that we conduct. So, sa kaso na to, when we throw a die 6,000 times, we expect that it will be close to 3.5. What does that mean? That means that the weighted average of the 6 possible outcomes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 with weights provided by the relative frequency is 3.5. Okay. Ano ibig sabihin nun, teacher? This implies na the more we roll the die, the closer that the average will be to 3.5. So, ibig sabihin, if we roll more than 6,000 times, we expect that if we get the average of that, the value will be close to 3.5. So, with this scenario happening, with the information and the relative frequency, we can characterize the mean of a discrete random variable by utilizing the probabilities from its dispersion. Ano ibig sabihin ng teacher? As follows. Number 1. The mean is considered as the measure of central location of a random variable. So, ibig sabihin, just like what we discussed in the basic statistics about mean, in this case, it is also the measure of central location, but this time we're talking about random variable. What else? Alam natin na ang expected value or mean value can be computed. How? We can actually compute it by multiplying the possible value of x by the probability of observing that value. After multiplying all the values of x with its observed probability, we actually add everything. And from there, we can rewrite this in simpler form, having it in summation notation, which represents the sum of all the products of the score by the probability of observing that value. Pwede pala siyang masolve. Sige, para mas maintindihan natin, let's have an example. This is an example for us to be able to understand expected value or mean of random variable better. Suppose you want to find the average number of apples sold in any 5 grocery stores as indicated by the figure below. So we have this illustration. What we can actually say about the illustration is that, okay, alam ko ng expected value nito. Kasi based on analyzing the figure or the illustration, I would say that the expected value is 11. But are there ways to verify? Yes, there are actually ways to verify. How? First, let's take the center of the distribution and put a line on it, which is on 11 if you're going to look at it. And we know that by inspection or by looking at the illustration, we are aware that we consider this as the expected value or mean. Okay, so what do we know? The value in the center is 11, but let's have a three-way proof for this. So first we cut it, and then we have 11 in the middle of the distribution based on the illustration. What else can we consider? We can consider the values of the apple sold. That means on the two sides, we have the left side and the right side. On the left side, we can consider 8 numbers. On the left side, let's also consider the other 8 numbers. If we are to do that, let's add all the values that we have here. We have 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6 until 10. We divide that with 8, get the average as well, and we're going to have 55 over 8. Can also be written as, in decimal form, 6.5. Okay. Sa kabilang side naman, kunin din natin yung 8 numbers starting from 12. So if it's 8 numbers, 12 until 19. So we add 12, 13, 14, 16, 17, 18, until 19, divided by 8. If we add all these numbers, this will be equal to 124 over 8, which is, when we simplify this further, that's 31 over 2. Or, in decimal form, it's 15.5. Okay, so once we have 15.5, we can actually consider all the average. We have the 6.5, the 15.5, and the center, which is 11. So, if we consider 6.5, 11, and 15.5, and get the average of this 3 divided by 3 to get the average of the 3, that would be equal to 33 over 3, right? Which is equal to 11. Did we result with the expected value? Exactly. This is how we can verify whether our assumption based on the analyzed illustration is correct. So, okay. So that's the expected value. Now, this would give us an idea that the best description would be assuming that the x-axis is an unbounded seesaw. So, para siyang seesaw, na kung saan the mean is said to be the point where the seesaw balance. If the mean is considered as the point where the seesaw balance, then we use this value as our mean, which we can say is the center of the weights of observation. Okay ba? Naintindihan naman? So I hope everything is clear, no? This concept will lead to the measure of the spread or variance. Variance, which is closely related to the measure of variability, the standard deviation. Anong ibig sabihin nun, teacher? Naaalala nyo sa basic statistics natin na-encounter nyo na yung word na variance and standard deviation. When we talk about variance and standard deviation, we also describe the data saying that anong ibig sabihin natin dun sa data natin? Sinasabi natin na when we talk about variance, we can describe the group as homogeneous or heterogeneous. Sometimes we also discuss whether the performance of the group has more variability or less variability. That is in terms of variance. Meron nga tayong tinatawag, if you can still recall, the higher the variance, the more variability is the group's performance, or the less homogeneous is the group. The lower the variance, the less variability is the group's performance, and the more homogeneous is the group. Now, while standard deviation talks about yung spread ng data natin, or how scattered is the set of data, or basically, how close is the data from the mean. Yun yung dinidescribe ni standard deviation. Ang only difference pinag-uusapan natin ngayon focuses on discrete random variable. The variance of a discrete random variable is defined by the given. So, paano yan, teacher? Anong ginagawa natin? Para makuha natin yung variance, which is denoted by the given symbol, it is computed first by subtracting the mean from each possible value. Yung score minus yung mean, then you square the difference. After that, you multiply it by its observed probability. Okay? So, basically, we have this formula. The standard deviation on the other side is the square root of the variance. This indicates that a small value of the standard deviation or variance means that the dispersion of the random variable is narrowly concentrated around the mean. So, ibig sabihin, if a large value of a standard deviation or variance it means that the distribution is spread out with some possibility of observing values at some distance from the mean. So that we will be able to understand this, magbigay tayo ng example or mag-illustrate tayo ng example. Consider the figure below. Let's illustrate the mean and then later let's compare the variance and standard deviation. Start tayo by illustrating the mean. Since the data is symmetrical along the x-axis, so the mean is equal to 6. We may verify the mean value using the 3 steps provided in the previous example that we had. Diba meron tayong 3 steps. Ano nga yan? In-identify natin yung center. And then after that, which is already here. Then after that, we considered all the values to the left side, get the average of it, and all the values on the right side, get the average of that. Then we consider those average and get the average of the 3 items. Okay, sige, para mas maintindihan, let's go right through it. So, we know already that the center of the distribution is 6. So, we consider 6. After considering 6, we need to get the average from, in this case, we need to get the average from 2 until 5. On the other side, on the right side, we get the average from 7 until 10. So, let's do the left side. That would be 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 divided by, since there are 4 items, 4, which will result to 14 over 4, simplified to 7 over 2, or written in decimal form as 3.5. Okay, we know that already. The right side, we have 7 plus 8 plus 9 plus 10 divided by 4 is equal to 34 over 4, or when simplified, we have 17 over 2, or 8.5 in decimal form. So we're not yet done because we need to get the average of the 3. What are those 3 that we're going to get the average with? We're going to get the average of 3.5, 6, and 8.5. So we're going to have 3.5 plus 6 plus 8.5 divided by 3 this time. So we have a sum of 18 over 3, and the result is 6, which is our expected value for the given distribution. Okay, now we know that we already answered letter A. This time, let's take a look at letter B. To illustrate the variance and the standard deviation without having computation, let's study the diagram. Okay, so start muna tayo by illustrating pa lang tayo the standard deviation. Later, we're going to have a chance to solve. So this time, let's compare the variance and standard deviation focusing on the given illustration. Since we are comparing 2 elements, this time 2 and 5 on the left, and let's consider 7 and 10 on the right. Okay, so remember 6 is the middle item. Then there is a need to double 6. Let's double 6 this time. So let's double the mean, which will be 12. So without computation, I said earlier without computation, what I mean is without following the formula. But this time, let's try to add to manipulate both sides of the illustration. So let's manipulate 2 and 5 by simply adding it. We have 7, and adding 7 and 10, that would be 17. We get the average of 7 and 17, which turn to be 7 plus 17 divided by 2. That would be 24 over 2, or 12. Then from 12, we subtract 12 by 7, which is 5, and 17 by 12, which is 5 also. This implies that the distance of the element from the mean in either direction is 5, which describes the spread of the elements in the observation. So what did we do again? We identified the 2 values, the leftmost value and the rightmost value from each side of the distribution. We doubled the middle value, and then we subtracted those values and arrived at 5. Are we good? Okay. This time, let's have an example. Mr. Umali is a mathematics teacher who regularly gives formative assessment composed of 5 multiple choice items. After the assessment, he used to check the probability distribution of the correct responses, and the data is presented on the table. So, ito yung table with the given data Para mahanap natin yung expected value, of course, we need to use the formula for the expected value, which we discussed earlier. Now, paano natin to hahanapin or paano natin makukuha yung summation ng product ng bawat score at ng value ng kanyang probability? How are we going to do that? First, consider the table, tas mag-add tayo ng isa pang column na kung saan doon natin ilalagay yung product ng score at ng probability niya. In this case, kunin na natin yung product. Alam natin na 0 times 0.3 is 0. 1 times 0.05 is 0.05. 2 times 0.12 is 0.24. 3 times 0.3 is 0.9. So, I'll be needing my calculator here. 4 times 0.28 is 1.12, and also 5 times 0.22 is equal to 1.1. Now, para makuha natin yung expected value, kailangan natin kunin yung sum ng lahat ng nasa last column. Let's add using our calculator. We're not going to include 0 anymore, so start tayo with 0.05. We add 0.24, then 0.9. Then 1.12, and last we have 1.1, and it's equal to 3.41. So based on this formula, we can actually have our solution as everyone, good day. I hope everyone's excited on another math venture with teacher. The answer would be negative 2.41. I need to square this difference, and the answer would be 5.8081. When we're done squaring, we need to multiply it with the probability, which is 0.05, and that will give me 0.290405. Let's have it up to 4 decimal places this time. Okay, so I need to round that off. On the third row, let's have 2 minus x, which is 3.41, is equal to negative 1.41. Squaring that would give me 1.9881, and multiplying that by 0.12 we'll have 0.2386. Okay, next, let's go to the next row, third row. We have 3 minus the mean, and our answer is negative 0.41. Squaring that, we have 0.1681, and multiplying that by the probability of 0.3 will give us 0.0504, since we opted to round off to the 4th decimal place. After which, we're going to have the 4th row. We have 4 minus the mean, which is 0.59. Squaring that, we have 0.3481. Multiplying that with its probability of 0.28, the answer will be 0.0975. Next, for our last row, we have 5 minus the mean, which is x, equals 1.59. Squaring this value, we have 2.5281. And multiplying it by the probability of 0.22, we have 0.5562. So having all these values, we can actually get the sum of all of this so that we will be able to compute for the variance of the given value. Okay, so to get the summation, we add everything. Again, let's use our calculator for that. We have 0.3488 plus 0.2904. It doesn't matter if there's 0 in front of the decimal point or not. If you're using a scientific calculator, that will be considered in the computation. Plus 0.0504 plus 0.0975 plus 0.5562, and the result is 1.5819. Therefore, since variance is the summation of the product of the square of the difference of the score and the mean and its probability, therefore we can say that the variance is equal to what we acquired as the sum, which is 1.5819. Okay, so since we already have the variance, the standard deviation will be easier. That would mean that to get the standard deviation, we get the square root of the variance. So it means that to get the standard deviation, we need to get the square root of 1.5819. And to do that, we need our calculator. So we need to key in the square root, followed by the value of the variance, 1.5819. And the result will be, let's get up to 2 decimal places. We can get up to 4, which is 1.2577, or approximately 1.26. So that's how we compute for the standard deviation, the expected value, and the variance of a given random variable. So note that the standard deviation is the natural measure of spread. In some ways, the standard deviation is the more tangible of the two measures. And in looking for the variance and standard deviation, the use of table is more organized way of doing computation. Since the computation in the case are tedious, we might as well have organized list of values so that we can easily identify what went wrong in our solution. But you may lessen the columns depending on its need in the problem you're supposed to solve. So there. So those are the reminders so that we can continue working on our next problem. This time, let's have another problem. A bank manager claimed that each savings account customer has several credit cards. The following distribution showing the number of credit cards people owed. Show the complete table of values in calculating the mean, variance, and standard deviation. So, ang goal natin, mapakita natin kung paano sinusolve si mean, si variance, at si standard deviation. Okay. So, simulan natin kay mean or kay expected value. Para makuha sa expected value or mean of the random variable, ang una natin gagawin is to add another column to the table, which will be labeled as the product of the score and its observed probability. So, 0 times 0.18 is 0, 1 times 0.44 is 0.44, 2 times 0.27, so let's have that, and the answer is 0.54, 3 times 0.08 is 0.24, 4 times 0.03 is 0.12. So I have all these values And to get my expected value, I just need to add all the items on the last column. So pag in-add ko yan, let me use my calculator, 0.44 plus 0.54 plus 0.24 plus 0.12 will be equal to 1.34. So the expected value, this is 1.34. So the expected value is, the expected value is 1.34. Okay, so I have the value already. This time, solve naman natin yung variance and standard deviation. To solve for the variance and the standard deviation, kailangan nating mag-add ng 3 columns from the table. Ano yung laman ng columns na yun? We're going to get the difference of the score and the mean. We're going to square that difference, and then the squared value will be multiplied by its probability. So, ibig sabihin, kung isosolve natin to, okay, kailangan ulit alam natin si mean. Ano nga yung mean or expected value ng distribution natin? It is equal to, balikan natin, 1.34. Okay, 1.34. Again, what I'm going to do if I have my calculator, para hindi ako magkikiin ng 1.34, what I should do is to simply assign 1.34, store it as a value of the variable x. So that every time na magkiin ako ng x, yun yung value nung item ko. Anong ibig sabihin nun? Halimbawa, instead of having 0 minus 1.34, I know that the answer would be negative 67/50 or negative 1.34. But since I already assigned x here with 1.34, to verify that, I can click on Shift, then recall. I actually have x is equal to 1.34 there. So I know that 0 minus x is equal to negative 1.34. I have to square that. Let's do it per row. Squaring that would give me 1.7956. And multiplying that by the probability, which is 0.18, will actually give me 0.3232. Next row, I have 1 minus the mean, which is 1.34. I'll have negative 0.34. If I will square that, that will give me 0.1156. And multiplying that by the probability of 0.44 will give me 0.0509. Okay. Next, for the third row, I have the mean 2 minus the mean, which is 1.34, is 0.66. Squaring that would give me 0.4356, and multiplying that with the probability of 0.27 will result to 0.1176. Next, I have 3 minus the mean, which is 1.66. Squaring that, I will have 2.7556, and multiplying that by the probability of 0.08 will give me 0.2204. For the fourth row, or the last row, I have 4 minus the mean, which is equal to 2.66. Squaring that would give me 7.0756, and multiplying that by the probability of 0.03 will result to 0.2125. 2, 3. Okay, so I have everything on the last column. I think I can already have the variance by simply adding everything on the last column. So let's add everything here. That's 0.3233. Okay, I'll do that again. That's 0.3233 plus 0.0509 plus 0.1176 plus 0.2204 plus 0.2123. And the answer is 0.9245. Okay, rounded already to this decimal place. So that means the variance of the given is equal to 0.9245. So the standard deviation is the square root of the variance. Therefore, it will actually give me the square
Sigurado ako na marami ka na namang natutuhan sa ating ETULay tutorial session ngayong araw. Tandaan, ito ay hindi lamang para sa ating mga mag-aaral, kundi pati rin sa ating mga minamahal na guro at mga magulang na kaagapay natin para maituloy ang pagkatuto sa kabila ng nararanasang pandemya. Patuloy ding sumubaybay sa DepEd TV para sa mga araling ginawang video episodes. Mapapanood ito mula Lunes hanggang Sabado, alas 7 ng umaga hanggang alas 7 ng gabi sa inyong mga telebisyon. Abangan sa Lunes mula 1:00 ng tanghali ang iba pang aralin sa ating ETULay free online tutorial session sa Science. I-like and subscribe at manatiling nakasubaybay sa ating ETULay tutorial session sa DepEd Edtech Unit FB page at Educational Technology Unit channel sa YouTube at sa DepEd Tayo at DepEd Philippines social media accounts. Paalam!